Alright, welcome back. I'm doing another replay cast on Domination. So this time I'm playing as the Ogre Kingdoms and my opponent is playing as Bretonnia. And again we're on Broken Leg Gully. And this is a map that I feel like I've been getting a lot recently. I'm not sure if the random matchmaking gives certain maps more than others, but I feel like I get Broken Leg Gully really often. So anyways, I'm mixing up my build this time. I feel like I have a tendency to always bring some combination of lead belchers and Noblar scrap throwers and I think it's called iron blasters. So this time I figured I'd change that and go with a ogre bull heavy lineup. So I've got 4 squads of ogre bulls with iron fists. Slow this down. 2 in the middle, 1 on each flank, and then I've got 4 squads of standard ogre bulls, each behind the iron fist variants. I've got a squad of man-eaters with iron fists in the middle, supporting my Tyrant and my Butcher of Beasts. And so for this matchup, what I was thinking was I'm going to bring Flock of Doom. I tend to bring Flock of Doom if I have a Lore of Beasts caster when I'm going up against a faction that I'm expecting heavy infantry presence from. And then I also put the Wyson's wild form ability on them. And so what I was thinking was this guy's probably going to have a good bit of spearmen. I'll use Iron Fist to try to soak up some of the ranged damage. He actually did not have as much archer presence as I was expecting, but my thought process was with that ability I could throw armor on one of my ogre squads as they're charging in, help them soak up some of the arrow fire and give them some more push against the spearmen so that they'll take less arrow fire, they'll take less damage from the spear units, which have anti-large against them, and then with their damage output, they'll be able to clear out the infantry really quick and maybe get them to rout. And I brought a Tyrant because I wanted someone who was also going to have some good armor on him, who could hold his own in melee combat. And that's basically what I was thinking. So my opponent, he's got, 2 groups of spears, both with shields, 2 groups of men-at-arms with polearms, peasant archers with pox arrows, and a standard peasant archers. On his right flank, he's got spearmen with shields, knights of the realm, and grail knights. And on his left flank, he's got his lord, who is Repanse de Leon, and she's on foot. I think she also has a mounted variant, but she's on foot, anti-infantry armor piercing, with Knights of the Realm and Grail Knights. So this time, instead of splitting between points 1 and 2, what I'm doing is having my main force go down the middle and then having my other squads go on each flank. And I noticed that this guy was sending his cavalry up on either flank, so I ended up running my ogre bulls into the woods because I wanted them to not get a huge charge advantage. I figured they were going to get the better charge off if I was in open field, so I sent my guys into the woods and then parked the rest of my force around this main capture point, sector 2. So he's got Knights of the Realm coming downhill. These guys are anti-large. Grail Knights, they got magic damage, anti-large, charging my ogre bulls. You see they got a lot of damage, probably 20%, 25% of my guys' health off just from the charge. And then I've run my Butcher of Beasts in. I dropped Flock of Doom on the Knights of the Realm. And I forget if I put Wyson's Wild Form on the ogre bulls with Iron Fist, and so they pull out there. And with the rest of my guys, I'm charging forward. Now, this is something that I'm playing around with, this build. Especially against a army like Bretonnia. What I was thinking was, even though they have spearmen, I'm just going to run my ogre bulls in and see how they do in melee combat when they're supported by a Tyrant, when I've got a Butcher involved as well. Repanse is on foot and she does not have anti-large, so I'm not too worried about having a squad of ogre bulls on top of her with a Butcher. If you were to put a target on my order Repanse to attack my Butcher, that's probably going to play out bad for me. So that's a matchup that I don't want to be dealing with. But let's see, what did he drop? Okay, I dropped another Flock of Doom on these Knights of the Realm. This is going to be kind of a theme throughout the match. It's kind of hard to tell the difference between these two factions because of the flag colors That's why I made them this like yellowish orange that kind of matches what's on their banners. It made me the dark gray, kind of like a gunmetal gray, almost black, to match the background on this Ogre Kingdom flag. I forget which sub faction this is. It's Saber Tusks maybe. So back here, I had brought in the Powder Guts, and unfortunately he was able to get his Grail Knights on top of my Powder Guts. But I brought in 2 groups of Saber Tusks and brought them around either flank, and luckily the Powder Guts are pretty good in melee combat. So, although you can see they're taking pretty heavy damage. This guy did a really good job with bringing good anti-large cavalry. I guess a lot of Bretonnia's cavalry are anti-large as it is, but he's putting them to good use. You can see my my ogres had been kind of routed off over here, and now my butcher is in one-on-one combat with the with Repanse, their lord. My Tyrant is with this squad of Ogre Bulls and Man-Eaters that are pushing through the middle. And you can see they did pretty good in melee considering they were facing spear men-at-arms and men-at-arms with polearms. So they're just wreaking havoc, and that's something I'm looking to pay attention to, is not let these guys chase too far off. I'm still trying to get a feel for when it is a good idea to use guard mode versus not. It seems like on domination it might be a good idea to use guard mode more often than not, so that your units don't go chasing deep off of a point that you've been fighting for. You know, you can see this combat started around this area, and these guys are all the way back towards their spawn. So I'm fighting some Grail Knights at this point. I'm near these Pox Arrow Peasant Bowmen, so ideally I chase them off as well and don't have everybody mob these Grail Knights, but that's what's going on back there. The fight's still going on over in the woods here. My Ogre Bulls with the Iron Fists are getting chased off by these Spearmen-at-Arms, and my standard Ogre Bulls are starting to waver over here as well, so they'll probably lose that battle. Now I sent some Saber Tusks around the side, and I believe I gave them a command to attack these Peasant Bowmen. I figured that these Foot Squires were not going to be screening them off because they would be distracted by my Tyrant, and it's about time for him to get out of there. On the middle point, I'm still fighting these Knights of the Realm off of my Powder Guts. Repanse is in my backlines, and at this point I started bringing in Ogre Bulls with dual weapons. Now, the thing I was thinking about as far as how I distributed my troops was I had the funds to have 4 groups of Ogre Bulls with Iron Fists to soak up some of the arrow damage, because I was thinking he would have more archers early. And then, because they're cheaper, I would have the standard Ogre Bulls behind them just to help clear out some of the infantry, maybe chase around the flanks and get on top of archers. And then after that, I'd bring in the Ogre Bulls with dual weapons, since they have anti-infantry, and I could use them sort of as cleanup forces after the ammunition had been soaked up, the archers were disrupted, and whatnot. But the good thing about that is, although they have these men-at-arms with polearms, these guys are doing a lot of bonus damage versus them. And Repanse is on foot, which for me is pretty lucky. I'm not sure if when she's mounted she has anti-large or if she's still anti-infantry, but because she's in infantry, these Ogre Bulls with dual weapons getting on top of her is definitely a trade that's worth it for me. And you can see he's got another squad of Knights of the Realm coming in, and the Knights of the Realm and the Grail Knights were pretty consistently being used by him. Looking to get my Powder Guts out of the forward fight, having them shoot on Repanse. And then I just brought in a group of Mornfane cavalry with great weapons to deal with some of their Knights of the Realm. So they've got control over Objective 3. I'm a little bit ahead in the victory points, and he's got another group of Grail Knights coming down. He got off a lot of charges coming downhill into the center point. That's kind of a theme throughout this match, if I'm recalling correctly. He's got some spearmen with shields. I want to get these Powder Guts away from there. Although getting the shots off on Repanse is pretty good. You can see she's not taking too much damage given how long she's been in this combat. And I'm continuing to chase off the Grail Knights with my Mornfane. So my Tyrant did a pretty good job. I got him back. He did a lot of damage up on this area. You can see there's been some pretty heavy combat just from the amount of corpses. Over near point 2 and closer towards his spawn. And at this point, let's see, I don't have any reinforcements coming in. I need to get someone up on this point 1. He's just got that one squad of Spearmen-at-Arms braced up there holding that point. And it looks like he forgot about these Knights of the Realm that had been fleeing and are now idle up there. So I brought another group of Mornfang cavalry, again with the great weapons. I did want some troops that had decent armor and anti-large, so I ended up bringing Mornfang cavalry instead of the man-eaters with great weapons. And right now he's got the defenders of Fleur-de-Lis, so this is Knights Errant, and I actually thought that they had anti-large, but they do not. So their shock cavalry looks like they just have high charge. And let's see, Frenzy. I did not know that they had troops like that with Frenzy, but again, still getting used to the unit rosters. So I did see that they were using a lot of cavalry, and that's part of the reason I was bringing in these Mornfangs. My Tyrant is fighting a group of spearmen armed with shields, which is not probably the best trade, but I did have the Thunder Mace on him so that when he gets clumped up in these squads of infantry, he can use that area of effect. I figured that he was going to be fighting infantry a decent bit this match, and that's why I kept the Thunder Mace on him. And Foe Seeker is something I got to get used to using. That's an ability that I often forget about. You can see Bretonnia is starting to build up their archer line in the back again. And I've got some Ogre Bulls with dual weapons heading up here to deal with these Spearmen at Arms. Mornfang cavalry are heading around the flank as well. He's got some Grail Knights that are wavering right on the start of that ramp, and I have chased off Repanse. You can see she's running. I sent some Saber Tusk to get on top of her. Maybe not the best use of them. They don't have armor piercing damage. She's got 90 armor, so I probably could have used them elsewhere. But my Mornfang cavalry are finishing off those Grail Knights. They're routing, and they're broken, not shattered, but off on the other flank, he's starting to bring in some more. So these are actually. I was looking at these guys throughout the match as if they were polearm men-at-arms. I think that's the name of the unit type, but they are foot squires, so they're anti-large foot squires. I guess that's one of their unique units. My powder gut's still letting off shots in the back here. Probably need to pull them back, but I've got two more squads of Ogre Bulls with dual weapons. My Butcher is on his way back into the fight. He was chasing off some units back here, got distracted, and again, going back to what I was talking about with guard mode, you can see my Ogre Bulls with dual weapons did a pretty good job fighting off these Spearmen at Arms. And one of the things that I was thinking about, I wasn't able to get it off there on that charge where I attacked these Spearmen at Arms with these dual weapon Ogre Bulls, but one of the things I was thinking about with this Butcher bringing White Sun's Wild Form is that there are trades that the Ogres can normally not take too cost effectively like that. And I felt like if I could just throw down that spell occasionally on some Ogre Bulls as they're charging into spear lines and things like that, that might make the trade actually efficient for me and cost effective, and that the guys could chase off, rout off the infantry with the shock damage from their charge and whatnot before they end up taking much damage and losing much value in the trade. Powder Gut's still shooting on Repanse. I think they end up killing her. And my Tyrant is still fighting in this melee, around point 2. I mean, it tends to always be the case on this map that point 2 is just a complete cluster of combat, dead bodies everywhere, and the sides, oftentimes there's an initial skirmish and then someone forgets about one of the spots. Someone sends some troops up, captures the one that's closer to them, and kind of goes like that. Powder Gut's getting caught off by some Knights of the Realm. Not too good on my part there, but I've got my Butcher nearby to support. I'm not sure if I remember to use him here. Looks like he's not casting anything at the time, but a lot of my troops get chased off, although the value trade is pretty even. I'm slightly ahead on points, although the points are going back and forth right now. I've got 2 of the 3 points, and Knights of the Realm running up off to point 3. I had my Man-Eaters with Iron Fist run up here. This was probably not even worth me parking them over here. I saw that they were weak, and they were, I think, back in this area from some combat that they were in, and I sent them to just park themselves on the corner of this and slowly capture that point. But I guess the way capture weight works, that was just going to take forever for them to get anything out of that. In hindsight, I probably could have brought them back into the middle to support my main forces. See some beat up Mornfang cavalry. I just summoned in some more Saber Tusks, fresh squad of Ogre Bulls, some beat up Ogres with dual weapons. My Tyrant is about at a 3rd health, and my Butcher is pretty beat up himself. But they got a lot of cavalry up on this side. Another charge coming in from the middle, and I remember this happening, and I sent my butcher to run past my Mornfane cavalry, and you know, sometimes you might have sent him to run this way, but if you are in a situation where you can flee into a unit that is a counter to the guys that are chasing after you, that's usually a good move. Although they're anti-large and they can deal good damage against my Mornfane cavalry, that's probably one of the best counter units I have for Knights of the Realm, given none of my Ogre variants are anti-large. Outside of my Mornfane cavalry, my Powder Guts are probably my best anti-cavalry unit that I have, especially when they have armored units like Knights of the Realm and Grail Knights. My Saber Tusk packs, although they can be a good maneuverable unit that can get on top of enemy mobile units, they're not going to be able to deal much damage, generally speaking, to armored knight units like the Empire or Bretonnia may have. You can see I've got some Saber Tusks, and I had some Ogre Bulls with dual weapons that got back into this back line, and I was really trying to press forward with them. You can see to push back their peasant bowmen. Earlier they had a firing line of peasant bowmen in between these two rock faces, and we're getting shots off on point 2, and I wanted to get them out of there. So mission accomplished there. I've got point 1 and point 2 held. Opponent's got point 3, but I'm pretty comfortable with that. Value trading is, again, still pretty even. Both of us have pretty similar amounts of units on the field, though you can see I've got some more supplies available, and just trying to restabilize myself around point 2 and deal with these cavalry while they're separated from the rest of his troops. This is one of those moments where I wish I did have some kind of artillery unit. So again, I didn't bring any range units other than my Powder Guts. You know, no artillery, no lead belchers, no man-eater ogre pistols other than the unique variant, and just getting some like artillery shots off into when there's 3 squads of infantry walking on top of each other like that would be so clutch. But so far it's doing pretty good. The value trading is pretty equal. And part of the reason I tried out this build was because I was finding that a lot of times I was noticing enemy range units were getting tons of value against me, and I figured it was because I was spending too much money on my own range troops and not getting enough destruction in their backfield. Maybe that means I should be using more Saber Tusk packs earlier. Maybe I should be mixing in Ogre Bulls with my Noblars. Something I'm still playing around with and getting used to the different roles that units can play within these rosters, but that's part of what I was thinking at this point. So I sent some Saber Tusks and a group of Ogre Bulls up on a point 3, capture that. He's got his Defenders of Fleur-de-Lis. I think this is a resummon from him. I'm pretty sure I had killed this squad earlier, but he's got them up on point 1. And I brought in a squad of Ogre Bulls, and what I figured was with the Ogre Bulls, they could just soak up damage from these guys, and my Powder Guts could shoot them from behind, and that would be a pretty good value trade for me. You can see I pulled my Tyrant back. He's pretty beat up. Got him on point 2. Still got a decent amount of Ogre Bulls. Actually, these are I reached some of the Man Eaters with Iron Fist, it looks like, and then a squad of standard Ogre Bulls here. I was trying to make sure that I didn't charge too far away from the point in a situation where I didn't need to. Although these are just peasant bowmen, I was trying to avoid taking too much shots from the enemy's archers while they're back near their spawn, because they can just bring in more troops and protect them. There's not really any point in me chasing them when there's no victory points to be had from doing so. But anyways, my opponent, I'm pretty sure my opponent conceded. I don't think I hit the point limit there. But good game to my opponent. It was an interesting matchup, and yeah, I felt good about how that Ogre Bull centric build went. I'm not sure if that would work against other variations of a Bretonnia build, but it seemed like it went pretty well there. And I do think that the butcher that I brought with the Flock of Doom in Wasteland's Wild form helped a lot. I don't think I'll be able to notice much value from the Wasteland's Wild form and see the difference that made during combat, because it would have been value that would be accrued by another unit. But the Flock of Doom felt like it was doing decent to soften guys up. And yeah, I don't think I spent 1,300 on him, because he was pretty bare bones. Tyrant did alright. Man-Eaters with Iron Fist did alright. definitely didn't earn their money's worth because I think these guys cost 1,300. Ogre Bulls with Iron Fist, none of them did great. Some of my standard Ogre Bulls did pretty good. Looks like 2 squads of them did pretty good work. Powder Guts definitely made their money's worth, although I think they cost 1,950, so a little bit over. More Fake Cavalry did decent. This squad of Ogre Bulls with dual weapons did a lot of work. And then my Saber Tusks did pretty well. Not too much value on Repanse. The Knights did decent. Holy hell. These polearm men-at-arms definitely earned their worth. Archers did alright. You can see the value trading was really close this match. He has a lot of units that had good damage value on them, especially his cavalry and those pole men-at-arms. Well, they're called men-at-arms polearm. Okay. So yeah, good game to my opponent, and I'll see you on the next episode.